All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Alhamdulillah. Um, we have our members from the Purifier Gaze community that have just joined the call. Alhamdulillah. Alameen. Welcome, everybody. As you can see, we have Sheikh Mikael Smith with us today for a very special topic and such a wonderful person to speak to us on that topic, bidnillah ta'ala. And it's really a treat because my understanding, Sheikh Mikael, is that you share about and you explore the ideas of emotional intelligence, particularly from the lens of the character of the Prophet and the life of the Prophet and that's such a treat. That's such a treat. Alhamdulillah, so we're so grateful for that. Welcome, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being here with us.
Wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you guys. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this from us and make it something beneficial so that we learn a way to get closer to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's truly what my intention was. Studying EQ or emotional intelligence from the prophetic lens just gives you a whole different understanding of what it means to follow sunnah, what it means to connect to people. And so hopefully we'll get within this hour the ability to explore that and go into it, inshallah.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. That is such a gift. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Who do we have here as far as the Purifier Gaze community goes? This is our community of brothers and sisters who are on the path and are on the journey and are trying to make the best of their lives. The reality for many is that, or really for all for all the members, is that there's something that developed in their lives, oftentimes at an early age, but it's not always at an early age that that an addiction develops or an unwanted habit develops. It can happen during transitions when something big happens, but it's a reality that all the members at one point or another came to realize that there's some work that needs to be done in their lives, and they're here doing that work. And so, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. And that's why we're here on this call. So may Allah accept from everybody. Ameen. And specifically this topic of emotional intelligence. And I read some of the descriptions of how you speak about this and how we look at the Prophet ﷺ, and how I think I read in one place that everybody around him felt special.
Yeah.
And so we see the Prophet ﷺ as somebody who is so nurturing and so giving. And I thought this is a perfect topic for us because a huge motivation for somebody who themselves are struggling is that desire to be more, to be better, to give more to the people around them. Because yes, and having something in one's life that saps away so much energy makes that very difficult.
Yeah. I was thinking, Bara, like, okay, so, my wife, well, she was talking to me. She was like, I was like, yeah, I got a program tomorrow. And she was like, with who? I was like, Purify Your Gaze. Right. And she's like, wow, that's really specific. Right. She's like not on social media and stuff. So she didn't see it, whatever. She doesn't know. So she's like, wow, that's a really specific thing. And I'm like, yeah, like it's very important just because of the context within which we live. And what we see today, all of it would have been considered like heavy or, like it would have been very, what's the word? I'm like at a loss for words, but the things that we see in normal culture today would have been extremely provocative, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And so the imagery that we're bombarded with it's just very difficult for a person to stay spiritually strong. And so she asked me, she was like, well, how are you going to connect that to EQ? And I was like, well, I was thinking about it. I was like, well, it's actually pretty simple, because what happens with a lot of the over sexualization and imagery that we see in marketing online and everywhere is there's a dehumanization of people, right? We see people as objects or means to an end of gratification. And we don't see the person for who they are anymore. And quite frankly, that is literally the opposite of the prophetic way and what EQ teaches. Literally the opposite. And so when we dive into emotional intelligence about caring for the person, and there's a lot, once we get into what it is and how it connects, you're going to realize the connection between these two worlds is that people are not a means to your gratification, but people in themselves are sacred. Like each person is sacred. Each person is a door to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are able to emotionally invest in them. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. He emotionally invested. And what we see regarding like the content that's available out there is it's literally the dehumanization of the most sacred being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, right? So that's like the connection. That's the connection between EQ and you know, purify your gaze, you know.
Allah yazikum khair. Yeah, I didn't look at it from that lens, but that is very very relevant, very relevant. And people who work through recovery, you know, they talk about the changes that they experience when they're able to see you know, people that that a part of them, or at one point in their lives, that person was you know, seen as an object of gratification, among other things perhaps, but there's that element of it. People talk about what it feels like when that perspective starts to change. So may Allah grant us tawfiq.
Ameen.
So starting us off, what is emotional intelligence?
Okay. All right. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma inna nas'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbak wa hubba amalan yuqarribuna ila hubbik ya arhamar rahimin. Okay, so first and foremost, I want everyone to know that I have authored a book on this topic called With the Heart in Mind. You can go on Instagram, check it out. You'll see a link there. The reason I say that is not just a shameless plug, but we only have like 45 minutes or so to really dive into EQ, or emotional intelligence. And that will not be enough to really do justice to this topic. So I'm going to do my best, and I'm hopefully you guys will have a lot of questions. We'll be able to answer those questions. Feel free to ask the questions as we go into the content. All right. Okay. First of all, let's begin with the prophetic side of things and work our way into what EQ is exactly. All right. So one thing that I begin with is, what was the primary function? Bara, tell me this. What was the primary function of the Prophet ﷺ, or any prophet? Like just primary, like basic, like not super deep. Don't overthink it. What's the primary function?
Deliver a message.
There you go. Boom. That's it. Deliver a message. Now, once we understand the function of prophethood, that the prophets, alayhi salatu wasalam, all of them came with the intent to pass a message to humanity, then it begs the question, did they understand? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them, inspire them, reveal upon them the ability to understand human beings? Did they know? Did they understand receptivity? Did they understand that sometimes someone may be emotionally not receptive? There may be emotional barriers to receptivity, or there may be cognitive barriers to the receptivity. And so was that part of what they were given? And so what I emphasize in this book is that many times when we study the messenger of Allah or the messengers of Allah, alayhimu salatu wassalam jami'an, we often are studying the message that they gave. Prayer, fasting, this, that, zakat. We're studying the message. What we fail to do as much is actually study the messenger as per how they got the message across. And that's what we're doing when we open the topic of emotional intelligence, because what you discover is that not only was the Prophet ﷺ inspired through revelation with the do's and the don'ts, the law, the right and the wrong, but the Prophet ﷺ was also given at a level par excellence above the rest of the creation, this understanding of other human beings. Why? Because if he was not able to pass on that message, then there's what we call in Arabic, itmamul hujjah. There's no like completion of the message to people because he wasn't able to get past emotional barriers to receptivity. And so let me give a brief example. Then we'll dive into it. There's a wrestler in Mecca. His name is Rukana, right? And he's the best. He's like the Khabib, right? Like, wait, it's today too. Wow. Okay. He's like the Khabib of Mecca, but he's not Muslim, right? And he's known, he's undefeated, he's known. And he doesn't want anything to do with religion. You know, he has his life, he does his stuff. You know, he doesn't want to get into this religion stuff, all this fitna in Mecca that's going on. One day, the Prophet ﷺ is walking down the street. He sees him. He goes to the other side. The Prophet ﷺ gets in his way. Like, hey, I want to talk to you. And he's like, yo, like, I don't want to talk to you about God. I don't want to. And the Prophet ﷺ says, no, I don't want to talk to you about religion. I want to wrestle you. And now he goes, oh, all right, cool. Like, let's go. And then the Prophet ﷺ goes forward. He goes, but there's a condition. If I win, you know, you follow my way. And if I don't win, then I'll leave you alone. Now, if anyone studied any martial arts, you know, a black belt and a white belt, there's just no match. Like, it'll never happen. It's just, unless it's a fluke. And so Rukana's like, all right, yeah, sure. Like, let's go. And we know the rest of the story. I'll paraphrase just for the sake of time. What I want to, and it's a beautiful story. He accepts Islam because the Prophet slams him 3 times in a row, right? Alayhi salatu wassalam. Beautiful story. But what I want us to focus on from the emotional intelligence perspective is emotional intelligence starts off by our ability to understand the language of emotion of other people. To speak the language of other people is a prophetic skill, and it's a prophetic science. And it was something that he was inspired with. So when he spoke to people, he read them, he recognized who they were, and he used that information in order to pass on the message to other people. And so that right there is just a snippet into the usage of emotional intelligence in the conveyance of a message to other people. All right. With that aside, let's jump straight into, one more verse I want to look at actually. The verse is لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. Listen to this. This is very key for emotional intelligence. Indeed, there has come a prophet to you from you, azizun alayhi. Very hard on him are the things that cause you difficulty. Now, what does that mean? What that means is when other people were suffering, when other people were going through pain, that would be very hard on him. And so what this shows is that there's this emotional connection deeply with other people. And that's why I spoke earlier about how much of the imagery and the things that are available online completely dehumanizes people, because we no longer care at all about the human being. The human being is asfala safilin, literally like the lowest of the lows. But for the Prophet ﷺ, whatever hardship anyone is going through, he's feeling. Now, that's high level emotional intelligence, because it requires something. And I want everyone to write this down. It requires emotional investment emotional investment, emotional investment, emotional investment. We are at a time where the imagery and the images and the things that we are shown encourages an emotional detachment from people and a pure exploitation of human beings. Where the Prophet ﷺ did not exploit people, but rather he emotionally invested with them to share in what they were going through. You feel me, Bara? You see the connection, right?
No.
Like
no.
it's so profound, because without emotional investment, everything I'm about to lay down before you makes no sense at all. You're like, how do I do this? Like, how? This doesn't make sense. So you got to begin with this verse. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. It was very hard on him what other people went through, the difficulty. Story after story about that. All right, let's go straight into it. What is emotional intelligence? All you have to do is write down this one acronym. Write the word ruler down. Write the word ruler. Maybe one of the hosts can type it into the chat box. Write the word ruler. The ruler is an acronym for the entirety of emotional intelligence, broken down into 5 capacities. And my objective in my book was to show all of these capacities existed par excellence within the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Capacity number 1, emotional recognition. Emotional recognition. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says to Aisha one day, Ya Aisha, I know when you're happy. I know when you're happy. And I know when you're upset with me. Emotional recognition. I can read your emotions. I know what this means. I can recognize emotional information. Right? Next. And I'm gonna go through all of them. Understanding. Emotional understanding. Emotional recognition is just the ability to sense a change, to sense something happening. My daughter's upset right now. My son's happy. My wife's a bit anxious right now. That's recognition. What is understanding? Understanding is the ability to get to the base or the cause of the emotion. To get to the base or the cause of the emotion. And so you're not dealing with the surface level. You've developed the ability to understand on a deeper level where the emotion came from. Bara, I need you to remind me to bring up something very important. Can you write this down in your notes?
Sure.
Social brain theory in primates. All right, just remind me of that if we got time. I want to connect this. I think the audience will really love this one thing. Okay, but we'll come back to that. So emotional understanding. You feel me? Emotional understanding. And understanding is different from recognition. Like, I see my wife is upset, but my emotional understanding is my ability to actually understand what's causing that, right? That's what's the source of it? What's the source of it? Let's go forward. L stands for label. L stands for label. What that means is your ability to label the feeling or the emotion that you're witnessing or that you yourself are feeling. Now, this is very important for a behavioral. Like, all of us are on the path of reforming our behavior. Like, we need to correct our actions. And part of the correction of the action is whenever you're falling into a sin or any action, it doesn't have to be a sin, it's any action. You don't just fall into it. Like, we understand by psychology and everything, like the number of things that lead to a final action. But your ability to label a feeling as it comes adds, it doesn't just point out to what it is, but it actually works towards the regulation of that feeling. So your ability to label, what are you feeling? Let me give an example. The Prophet said in the hadith, he says, La taghdab, very basic hadith. Don't get angry. La taghdab, la taghdab, la taghdab. 3 times. He said to a sahabi, don't get angry. You can't control anger if you can't name it. And so what you got to write down is, if you can't name it, you can't tame it. If you can't name it, you can't tame it. And so the way this connects for our behavior modification is whenever we do habitual actions, there's normally a process that takes place before. And so 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour before the actual action, we will notice certain things popping up in our brain. We'll notice certain emotional, physiological changes. And once you're able to highlight those emotions, then you can be like, uh-oh, I know what's happening, Nufs. In an hour from now, you're going to have me in some fitna. You know what? I'm about to go play basketball because I know you, bro. But it's your ability to label the thing that you're experiencing in the moment. And I say that because many people think, what does labeling anger do to anger? Oh, it just gives a name to it. No, labeling is huge. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Allah taught Adam the names of things. The names of things, and part of things are emotional. And the angels didn't even know what those things are. In my book, I highlight like perhaps the things were emotions, because the angels didn't even have those. They're like, what are those? Like you'd say, what are those, right? And he's like, oh, this is anger. This is anxiety. This is happiness. This is whatever. All right. So the ability to name is the first step towards the last thing. And we're going to get there in a minute. Let's move on to the E, R-U-L-E, expression, emotional expression. Emotional expression is one's ability to express the emotion in a way that is pleasing to Allah and fulfilling to the self. Fulfilling to the self. Shameless plug. I have a podcast called Sufficient Answer, where I go through, it's on the Qalam podcast. It's on Qalam Institute's podcast. And one of the series, you have Abdurrahman Murphy, myself, Mufti Kamani, Abdul Nasser Janda, but one of the series I did last year was called The Sufficient Answer. And the book is based on Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi got a question. The question was like someone stuck in a sin and they can't get out. Yo, this is crazy, Barra. Someone wrote Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi a question. I'm stuck in a sin and I can't get out of it. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi wrote a whole book as a reply. And that book is called Jawab al-Kafi, or Sufficient Answer. I did a 25-week podcast on this book. Crazy. It's crazy. The reason I bring it is because it talks about the psychology of how to get rid of a sin that you're connected to. It's crazy stuff. Shameless plug, just came to my head. Wanted to share with everyone, just in case you need something to listen to. Okay.
The name is, for the podcast, is Sufficient Answer?
No, the podcast is Qalam Institute's podcast. So Qalam podcast, Qalam. It's a blue Q, right? And in that podcast, there's tons of material, mashallah. If you scroll, you're going to see a series called Sufficient Answer. And in that podcast, in that series, starting with Sufficient Answer 1, and subhanAllah, you know what's funny, Barra? I'm going to get back to the topic, but you know what's funny is you actually don't know the sin until halfway through the book. Like he never tells what the sin was.
No.
And between me and you, low key, you know what the sin actually was? He was in a homosexual relationship. Crazy. You know why that's mind blowing? It's like, oh my God, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi's dealing with stuff we're dealing with today.
No.
Crazy. So art scholars have left amazing stuff for us in our Turath Ilmi, mashallah. So check that out. Shameless plug. I only did that just because I felt it would really benefit our audience, inshallah. Just if it benefits, it benefits. Qalam Institute podcast, scroll down. It's called The Sufficient Answer. Okay. We're talking about expression of emotion. Expression. إن العين تدمع والقلب يحزن ولا نقول إلا ما يرضى ربنا. The Prophet ﷺ validated emotions and feelings. Validated them. Validated. It's real. The pressure you feel, the desire you feel, the anger you feel, the anxiety, It has to be validated first. In the Arab and Desi community, we don't validate emotions as a family. We don't validate it. It's validation means, hey, dad, I'm feeling a bit of anxiety right now. Oh, be quiet. What are you talking about? You got to go to school. Be quiet. Go. We don't validate emotions. We don't validate it. So when you don't validate emotions, you don't teach people the skills necessary to regulate emotions, right? You don't teach people the skills necessary to regulate emotion. And so the validation process is the first step towards giving people, and even yourself, the ability to express it positively. Express it positively. Now, what do we mean by expression? Well, the hadith I just said, Innal ayna tadma, the grandson or the son of the Prophet ﷺ had passed away. And the Prophet ﷺ was crying. Tears, man, tears. Obviously, right? And the Sahaba, they were in a society that for men, they hid emotions. I mean, these were people who buried their daughters alive, dude. You know how much emotional suppression you have to have in order to be in a culture like that? Like think of the ethos of the culture. Hey, Abdullah, I heard you had a kid. Yeah, it was a daughter. Oh, okay. All right. You buried her? Yeah, I buried her. Like that's the ethos. You get what I'm saying, bro? Like these aren't just isolated events. This is the norm. Yeah, your family was expecting, right? Yeah, it was a daughter. Oh, okay. Like, astaghfirullah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So the reason I bring that up is because you have to understand that from the context of emotional expression. You weren't allowed to express emotions. And the Prophet ﷺ was crying, and people are like, what are those? Literally, Abdurrahman bin Auf was like, what is that? The Prophet pointed to the tears. He said, Rahmah. Subhanallah. He said, this is Rahmah, mercy. So he said, Innal ayna tadma. The eyes will cry. That is recognizing the physiological impact of emotion. Innal ayna tadma. Wal qalbu yahzun. And the heart will be sad. What does that mean? That means that psychologically, psycho-spiritual is the term we use, in that you are going to feel something in your heart. Your eyes are going to cry. Your heart's going to feel something. Brothers and sisters, I don't know if you understand. You can apply this hadith to any other emotion or desire you feel. The eye, just switch it for another body part. That's all. Innal ayna tadma wal qalb yahzan wa la naqulu illa ma yarda rabbuna. But when it comes to expression, that's where we control. Eye cries, heart hurts, but I got to control the reaction. That is huge. In our families, we're not validating emotions. We're suppressing emotions. And when you suppress something long enough, you're going to have an explosion, literally. You're going to have an explosion. And so the Prophet ﷺ is relieving humanity from his community, but humanity in the long term, he's relieving them from this emotional suppression and like, cry, bro. It's okay. Cry. It's good. Let it out. But control. So expression is the E. And we come to our last letter in the acronym, which is R, for regulate. Regulate. So you express, but you regulate the expression. And for Muslims, we understand what that means. Like if it's a sexual desire, I recognize, I understand, I label, I express, I regulate. Halal. You know what I'm saying? It's all there. It's all there. And I'll give you, just for the content of our group, the Prophet ﷺ, he one day saw someone very beautiful, and he immediately went home to his wife, and he was intimate with her. Now, that doesn't mean, like, let's be real. I'm assuming this is an adult group, right? I mean, I don't have to, like, I can talk as an adult, right, Bara?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes.
All right, cool. Just making sure. This ain't no family program. Okay. So the Prophet ﷺ, he goes to his wife, and obviously he's intimate with, you know, everything before intimacy. That's part of emotional intelligence. Like he said, send messengers before the message, meaning there's a science to this, right? There's a way for intimacy. And the reason I bring that up is when a person, for married people in the group, you should understand that whatever I'm saying, it entails the emotional element of the act as well, right? So then he's intimate with his wife, and he says to the community, when one of you sees something that attracts you, go to your spouse, فَإِنَّ لَهَا مَا لَهَا, because she has what she has. And what this teaches me, what this tells us, is the regulative aspect of it, that he's recognizing, look, I saw something and I felt something, but let me show you how that is dealt with, how that is. And then the Sahaba are like, wait, we get reward for this? And the Prophet's like, yeah, you get reward. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, of course you get reward. Yes, yes, you do, right? So I guess my point there is he's validating the sexual desire within himself. Alayhi salatu wassalam. Like, that's amazing. That's amazing. The Prophet kept it real with us. And he's like, yo, I was walking down the street. I saw something and I had to go home. I had to go home. And the society that we live in now, man, it's literally the believer, when they walk out their door, it's just attacked. And when you talk, it's funny, you talk about lowering the gaze. Like, I've taught lowering the gaze in the sufficient answer, but I teach lowering the gaze from not just sexual things. Like controlling gaze is a philosophy of life, because we're impressed by whatever we see. Like if I see a Lambo on Instagram, all of a sudden I'm looking at Lamborghinis all day. Like so lowering the gaze is a philosophy for maintaining psychological well-being and focus on objectives that we want to have in life. A horse that's racing, when they're training the horse, they put up blinders because it has to stay focused. And so that's one way to kind of understand the concept of gaze. Imam, I'm sorry to digress, but just forgive me, Baral, but hold on, man. Allah's putting this in my heart. May Allah accept. Listen, Imam Ghazali said, Man atlaqa basarahu nadima. And in another place, he said, Man atlaqa basarahu janna jununa. He's like, whoever lets themselves look at everything and anything, you'll go insane. You'll go insane. Why does Ghazali say that? He explains, because you're going to see more than you can have. And this is in my podcast. You'll see more than you can have, but you can't have patience on all that you see. Ajib, yo. You'll see more than you can have, but you can't have patience on all that you see. It's crazy, subhanAllah. Okay, so this is emotional intelligence. And my objective was this. Recognize, understand, label, express, regulate. All of these in emotional intelligence, these 5, what we call capacities, these can be worked on. But one more thing I want you to understand, they are intrapersonal and interpersonal at the same time. What does that mean? What does that mean? Intra and interpersonal. What does that mean? What I mean by intrapersonal is within yourself. All 5 of these categories you have to develop within you. Recognize, understand, label, express, regulate. But once you become more skilled at emotional information within yourself, now you have to actually apply that to the loved ones around your life. Your daughter, your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, your grandmother. And all of these relationships require a high level of cognitive maintenance. And so this brings me to something very interesting. I'm in the middle of writing my 2nd book, which kind of follows up with the emotional intelligence, like how to. Okay, how to. So I was looking at the question, lost my train of thought. So Abdullah, I got you. Inshallah, I'm going to talk. I'll try to help you with that. But at the same time, like our topic isn't directly that. So let me finish this, but I got you. Inshallah, I'm not going to leave you hanging. Inshallah ta'ala. All right. The name of the book is With the Heart in Mind. The name of my book is With the Heart in Mind, the emotional and moral intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ. Just Google it. With the Heart in Mind, the moral and emotional intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. Okay, so come back with me. Listen to this. This will blow your mind, Bora. So there's a researcher, a British researcher, R.I.M. Dunbar, and he's done amazing work on the concept of social brain theory. And social brain theory basically says this. Why did, and I'm going to use terms they use, but just bear with me. Why did primates and humans evolve to have such large brains? Right? Simple question. Why did they evolve to have such large brains? So back in the 90s, Dunbar had put forward this theory called the social brain theory. And this theory has been accepted. It's been cited over and over again and worked on more and more till today. You can find studies as recent as last year still researching social brain theory in more detail. And I'm writing on this right now. So one of the things that I found so interesting is this. Social brain theory basically says this. The mammals that have to maintain large social groups developed, right? Allah created them that way, developed larger brains. The reason being because of the amount of social information regarding the various people within that social network, they needed more cognitive material because one person plays many roles within the social network. Feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what's crazy is this. One of the most recent studies said that the animals that have casual mating partners all have smaller cognitive abilities and hence smaller brains. And the mammals and animals that have long-term relationship mating partners, they were further evolved. So literally, if we broke this study down, it's saying hookup culture is a sign of lack of intelligence. Maintaining long-term relationships with one or multiple people, whatever, we can put Islam in there, was a sign of advancement evolutionarily. So in their own words, the cultural norm of a hookup society is backward evolution. Like you're not evolving, you're, what is it, devolving? I don't know the word for it.
No.
Do you get my correlation or no?
I do. No.
I hope the audience is following me. Like, again, guys, I know, like, so my topic is emotional intelligence. And so like, if you want to connect this directly towards an addiction of pornography and things like that, then as I said, my research doesn't directly, but indirectly it connects 100% sure. And go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say sometimes the chat box is quiet, but my experience has been that everybody's is mashallah on board and listening. I have a couple that are checking in. Go ahead, brothers and sisters. Just check in with us. Say Assalamu alaikum. I'm here.
Yeah. So again, I hope you guys are following the content and you understand the relevance of that research. I mean, that research is basically showing that the reason why Allah gave mammals like primates and human beings such large brains is because they have to link with people more. And it's just amazing research. And that's what I'm working on right now. But it connects to our concept of this. Now come back with me, feel me on this. My thesis in this book is that the Prophet ﷺ was the most intelligent of Allah's creation. alayhi salat, that's the whole beginning. My whole book begins, who is the most intelligent of God's creation? And so it's like, how do you quantify or qualify, intelligence? Well, lately it's been about how you connect to people. And if you look, now I'm going to make a direct connection. If you look at, the sex industry, pornography, all of that, if you look at it, it's all about not connecting to people. It's literally the opposite. You're not connecting to human beings. You're taking the most sacred and potentially spiritually elevating experience that human beings could have to come to unity, and you're taking it and stripping it of all emotion, all spiritual aspects of it. And so it's just very, very profound, when you look at it from that perspective. So my advice is that all of these concepts, all of these capacities that I shared, all of these can be applied within yourself. You have to build all of them within yourself, but you also have to build them within others. And when you build them with others, you're able to connect to people on an emotional level. And that ability to connect on an emotional level is directly rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you are nurturing what it means to be human. What do I mean by that? Oh, let me add one more thing. Hold on, yo. Okay. The research that I shared with you guys, basically by Dunbar and others, explained that long-term relationships needed cognitively more neurological matter. And so you literally had to have, you really had to have a larger brain in order to maintain multiple relationships. And animals that had casual mating practices, like crazy, the word they use. I'm like, do you guys realize what you're saying about your society? Like, they had smaller brains because they can't. Now check this. What's crazy is that one of the things with our social media and internet usage is Dunbar's research shows that there are layers within one social network. There are layers within one social network. Can I share some research with you from my screen?
Bismillah.
All right. I'm sharing some stuff that I really shouldn't be sharing with you guys, but you know what? Who cares? You got to allow me to share my screen.
Oh, Bismillah. Let's see. I might need a tip on how that's done. Oh, there we go. I think I see it. Okay, try now.
Okay. Oh, here it is. All right. So can you guys see this? How well can you see this circle here? Can you see it well or no? Is it too small?
On my screen, I'm able to read it. If somebody's on a cell phone or something, they might not be able to.
Okay, let me share something else. I got you. Let me share something else then. All right, check this. So, so listen to this. What the research teaches us is that in one social network, there are layers of relationships. And what we find very interesting is that the most of your emotional nurturing and nourishment is going to come from the immediate circles of 5 people, 5 to 6, 7 people, depending on how big your family is. But what happens is this core group of 5 people is where you're supposed to spend the most of your emotional investment, because they need you and you need them. Your feelings of appreciation, love, this, that, all come from this circle. What's amazing, Bara, is what we're doing today is the individuals are spending time in the 500, 1500 circle, and they are seeking emotional and physiological like nourishment from these circles way out here, neglecting the inner circles. And so what's crazy is that literally they're taking the most intimate of actions and pulling it from the furthest layers out. You feel me or no?
I do.
Like you're taking intimacy, just take intimacy, which happens in the closest knit, but you're reaching out to the furthest circles for it because you haven't nurtured what it means to be human, which is the emotional connection to other people. It's crazy, yo. And then if you study it, now here's my other theory that I place in the book. Why was the Prophet himself, alayhi salam, allowed more than 4 wives? One of the reasons, if you look at social brain theory, and if you look at my research on emotional intelligence, if he had a higher EQ, can you mute everyone, please? All right. If you look at his EQ, your EQ is directly correlative of your ability to handle more emotional information. So where for the average, for the high level man, he could have handled 4 families at one time. The Prophet ﷺ's emotional EQ was so high that the threshold was higher without there being any dhulm. And for many of us, 1 is all we can really handle because of our emotional, lack of emotional investment in people. Just to put that in there. But anyway, so the point I'm saying, there's so much here. Guys, listen, I'm no way able to do justice to my research in 40 minutes. It's not going to happen. But I hope you realize 2 things. Part of the being a Muslim is emotional investment in people. That means not using people for what they give you, but actually emotionally connecting to them. On my Instagram, I'm doing another current halaqah every Wednesday night. You can check it out on Instagram. I was just talking yesterday about loving other people for the sake of Allah, not loving them for your sake. So there's like this non-selfish love. I love you for you, not for what you give me, right? So the Prophet ﷺ teaches us how to love people for their betterment. And that all comes down to emotional investment. And once you go into emotional investment, you'll be able to then read people and understand people on a deeper level below the external. You then begin to dive into the internal, the depths of the heart.
No. Allah khair, Sheikh. I was listening and our folks were listening, and there was a lot that gives so much insight about understanding ourselves, understanding our relationships, and even understanding society as a whole. So Jazakumullah khairan for that, Sheikh. And the question that was, or the thought that was brought up at the beginning was, how's this related to the context of our community? And I just want to share that to me, what you've shared is in a sense recovery in a nutshell, because you shared with us that we develop these capacities within ourselves, and developing those capacities within ourselves is and then extending that to others is in one way that people look at addiction, is the disease itself. So I'm not sure if I'm getting the phrase right, but an intimacy disorder is how some people describe a sexual addiction. And so we're learning to connect. We're learning to connect with ourselves and with others. So may Allah grant us tawfiq. And
I'm going to say this to the group. Listen, I firmly believe that the ability to lower your gaze in today's society is the doorway to wilaya. You know what wilaya means, brothers and sisters? It means to be a wali of Allah. Like the mujahida of our time. Every time has a different fitna. You will literally just be that's it. You're a wali of Allah. That's the only thing you need to do in today's day and age. Obviously, you got to pray. I mean, don't take me out of context, guys. Obviously, come on. But literally, I'm only saying that so you realize like how the fitna is serious nowadays. But I want to answer the question straight on. Like, there are so many tools and things, whether they be like, you know, there's so many things, and being a part of Purify Your Gaze will give you all of those different resources. What I'm talking about today is specifically your ability to now look at people as emotional beings, right? And realize I need to learn how to connect emotionally to people, or else I'm going to be in really big trouble throughout my life. I need to learn this. And then when you realize it's part of your deen, when you realize it's part of the sunnah, you're like, man, this is great, man. This is amazing, you know? You know, and I just want to be real with you guys. Yo, I converted when I was 19. So I lived 18 years in Jahiliyyah before that. Right? And so I understand the struggle, man. I understand the struggle. How can we become more emotionally attached to people around us? I personally feel an emotional barrier that doesn't allow me to fully open up. It's as what you said in the beginning. I feel like displaying emotions is not manly. So Hisham, it depends, yo. You may need to see someone. And here we go. Uh-oh, he told me to go see someone. That means, no, that's, if my ankle hurts, I go to a physical therapist. If mentally I can't emotionally connect, I need to go to a therapist, bro. There's nothing wrong with that. And now, I don't know if you live in the West, I don't know where you live, but in America, we have so many now Muslim that will be able to say, all right, we believe in Allah, let's go through it. They're not going to go to the masjid and announce your stuff. Everyone's like, oh, they're going to expose me. No, they're not. There's laws against that, okay? Like, go talk to them. So you need to go see someone. This ain't something you sit there and handle on your own. You literally got to go see somebody. Like, you feel me, brother? You know what I'm saying, right?
No. Connecting with. We had a recent guest, and one of the takeaways was just connecting with somebody on a human level. It can unlock so much, and that can happen. I can attest that can happen in therapy or working with a counselor.
Yep. And you may think like, oh, I'm not that serious, well, I go to the doctor for checkups all the time. Right? But what you just explained to me, like, I cannot attach to people emotionally. You may need to see somebody for that, bro. And there's nothing wrong. We're all have struggles. There's nothing wrong. All right. It may cost something. Now that's something. Khalil Center has amazing resources. Khalil Center. I'll say it again. The Khalil Center. There's one in Chicago. There's another in Cali. Like, they're all like, mashallah, so many resources. Okay. Another question is, Sheikh, I'm completely isolated from so many people who are close to me because of this addiction, and to invest emotionally in people is difficult. Suggest me something to break this guilt of addiction and start investing emotionally. Oh, okay. Tabira, listen, first thing first, you just got to do a real toba, right? You got to just start with a clear toba and a desire to like break it. Like, that's it. That's it. I'm done. Like anger with yourself. No, I'm done. New leaf tomorrow. Today is a new day. In addiction, like, again, like I said, I had life before Islam. Like, an addict is an addict for life. Like, an addict of alcohol or drugs, they consider themselves addicts for life. And that's because at any moment, they know they could slip. And so, khudu hidharakum, they're always on guard of things that could trigger, whatever. So you have to kind of, you're going to have to get help. You're going to have to stay with this organization, use the resources that they give you. But I'm sure, Bara, this is where you come in, bro, because I think you're better equipped to answer that question than me, quite frankly. I mean, like, you literally, this is what y'all do, right?
So are you referring to the question from Tabira?
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. I mean, so and there was a brother earlier also that asked, help me to fight pornography. I think the what can be beneficial for anyone who's in the place where I feel like it stinks that I'm working through this addiction, and we're talking about this stuff that's just out of reach for me, perhaps, or it seems out of reach.
Yeah.
But that's why, Sheikh, I want to go back to what I shared, and when I shared it, I meant it. I mentioned, and HGK just also made a comment with this observation that connecting is both the cure and the result of recovery.
Wow. I get it now. I get it, yo. I see this from a different perspective now. Wow, Bara, that's deep. HGK. Yo, yeah, subhanAllah. It's a result and a cure for it. That's deep. That's deep.
So I mean, if anybody's feeling frustrated or upset that they can't immediately implement some of these things, then we go back to some of the things that we share. You know, maybe right when you first join the community, this is a journey. You know, this is a journey, and the fact that you're here today, you are uncovering something new. You have something new to think about, something new to practice, and you know, next month come back again to the next office hour. You know, get on the forums, complete some of the trainings. All of these things are the pieces, idhnillah ta'ala, that do come together, that will come together. People have done it. People have experienced change. People have shared that, you know, my own family, my own mother is telling me that I'm a different person. You know, as they go through the process. So it's a journey. Just keep that in mind. Sheikh, I want to be fair to the one person that sent in a question beforehand.
Okay.
He's Muharib, and I'm not sure if he's online. But I just want to mention his question. I think we already addressed it, but I just want to mention it, which is that how do I work on being more nurturing to the people around me? You could say having better emotional intelligence with the people around me while I'm in the midst of recovery from addiction.
Okay, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I think the pieces that are needed for that have already been shared, but if there's anything that you would like to add, I just wanted to mention his, because he sent his question in beforehand, so I had to be fair to him. And then at that point, I think, you know, it'll be time for us to wrap it up, inshallah. So if you have anything to share, Sheikh, you can.
Okay. So one more, the main part, say the question one more time.
Yeah, how can I work on nurturing others while I'm in the midst of recovery?
All right, so that's what now the part about while I'm in the midst, like that may be more Bara's field. Like in general, what the way we're working on this is learning how to be present with people more often. And now hear me out, everyone. Like basically presence is a major part of fighting this addiction and solving the emotional side of things. Okay, what I mean by that is, you ever been talking to someone and then now your mind goes off into somewhere it's not supposed to be, right? That this is part, and you feel like those thoughts coming. Well, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, and I put this in my podcast, you got to check this podcast out, guys. Presence solves the drifting of the mind. Yo, Barad, you feel what I'm saying? Yo, look. Presence is what's going to emotionally connect you to people, and presence is what's going to stop shaitan and your nuts from drifting into la la land or harama land over there. You feel me, right? And so when I'm with people and I'm present with them, like I'm there with them, I'm present, that's when I'm not allowing myself. That's how I'm building emotional intelligence. And what dawned on me at this moment as I'm explaining it was like, wait, that's also connected to the problem, because I'll be talking to someone and all of a sudden these thoughts are coming. But if you built and worked on your presence with people, that's literally two birds with one stone. So like HGK said, result and cure. So presence, build presence. What that means, let me give an example. Next time I'm talking to my mother, like I got to be present with her mentally. Next time I'm talking, to my boy, present, like, yeah, bro, what's up? Like presence. I don't know how to explain presence. Presence is like, you're there, like you're there. And now you're gonna be like, well, how do I build presence? Like these are skills you got to learn, man. You got to like literally fight your nuffs and learn presence. Mindfulness and presence is something you learn. I can't give you a hack to presence. You got to practice presence. and it comes slowly.
No, guys, we have to let Sheikh go to his to his next
yo, what's
session.
up with you see Tawakkal's question though?
I
Opening up.
I do. It's an important question. What I was thinking to do, Sheikh, is hold on to it and see what we can share in that regard. I just wanted to make sure that you can go to your next session. And what I will mention, make dua, everybody. I pray that one of the topics for our office hours can be developing mindfulness. And so we might need a little bit of time.
That would be huge. That would be huge.
No, we might need a little bit of time to arrange for that. But I think that that would be huge.
Is this recording going to be available to people after?
So this is in our community.
Okay.
No, yeah, it'll be available to within our community portal, inshallah ta'ala.
Awesome.
No. Allah yazikum khair.
Jami'an.
Alhamdulillah. So I'll you let me know, Sheikh. Are you gonna step off and then I'll do a formal
yes.
salam to everybody?
So listen, brothers and sisters, thank you so much, brothers, for joining me. I hope it was beneficial for you, inshallah ta'ala. Please reach out to me. However, email, however you want to reach out if you need some guidance on anything. My email is Mikael, Mikael @qalaminstitute.org. Check out Qalam's podcast, really good stuff to keep you, nurtured and providing good stuff for you, inshallah. And if you're interested, my book is still for sale, With the Heart in Mind, where I go into emotional intelligence. Like I said, I'm going to end with this. I feel that the correction of our gaze is the door to wilaya in today's society. So, the struggle is real and the reward is great. May Allah accept all of you. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.